Hello and welcome to What It Is, the show of conversations on music news, culture, and history, brought to you by Independent Arts and Music of Asheville on imavl.com, broadcasting live from Lexington Avenue Brewery in downtown Asheville, North Carolina. I'm Joe Kendrick, very glad to be your host on the debut of What It Is on video. I am joined by Justin Farrar, a freelance writer and rock editor at Rhapsody. Also, Kim Ruehl, who is a writer, editor, and community manager at No Depression. Jonathan Scales, the steel pan player and leader of the Jonathan Scales Fourchestra. And last but not least, we've got Jay Sanders, who is CTO at Creative Allies, as well as a musician with Acoustic Syndicate and a Normus Trio and Invisible 3. In our hour-long show today, we explore the music that we love in conversations about culture in the form of a look at some of the venues and some of our favorite memories of spots around town and what makes a great venue, as well as history with a talk on concert experiences and memories, and then news in the form of politics in music and exploring some of the political themes that are going on now as we lead up to the election. And first, we'll start with our look back in history and our talk on memories of great concerts. It's always an easy thing to kind of break the ice in any social setting by talking about music that you first saw, first show that you saw, the greatest show that you ever saw, or perhaps even the big fish that got away, the show that you regret forever after never getting to see. And we'll start What It Is today with your memories, Justin. What have you got?
I'm going to go, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to go with the very first concert that kind of exposed me to the the demonic nature of rock and roll, which was, I think it was 6th or 7th grade, and this was like 1988, I think, and it was Guns N' Roses, and it was at this big motor speedway. I'm from upstate New York, so big motor speedway, and it was just dirty and filthy, and they were so vile, and there were all these fights. I'm getting it blurred, like I've kind of created things that probably didn't happen, but I remember there being fights, like a guy getting thrown into a case of beer, and another fist fight over by the like Budweiser line or something, and the band was just raging hard. And it was actually, I don't know, it was kind of a meaningful thing because it was the first time I really like saw an environment that was like really kind of aggressive and violent, and it seemed like everybody was bombed, like wasted to the gills. It was the 80s, so it's like people rolled differently in the 80s than they do now. Nowadays people drink water in between beers, but back then it was full on. And they were actually the opening band. They were opening up for Aerosmith on Aerosmith's what was it then? Permanent Vacation. Was that their first big comeback album?
I saw one of those shows.
Yeah.
Too. That was awesome.
Yeah, and it was an interesting tour because I think that the kind of understanding is that Guns N' Roses was just blowing them away, like at every single gig.
Well, we went to see Guns N' Roses. We didn't know. I mean, sort of knew who Aerosmith was, and by the we were.
Yeah.
What? This is backwards. It needs to be the other way around. It was right when they were exploding. Or
yeah, I think more people were more excited to see Guns N' Roses, and so yeah, that's my first true rock and roll moment. It stained me forever.
I think I had a similar experience going to see REM in Tampa the summer after I graduated from high school, and that was the year that Radiohead released Creep, and they were the opening band for REM, who was I think on the is the What's the Frequency Kenneth period, REM, and Radiohead just blew the lid off the Tampa Thunderdome or whatever it's called down there, and that was a hugely memorable moment. I didn't want Radiohead to get off stage, and make way for REM, which looking back is funny because I love REM. But the first show I ever saw was the Beach Boys during the Kokomo era. At the Brevard County Fair in Florida.
Was Stamos on percussion?
No, he was not there. I think that was probably my main motivation for going to the show, but
he was a
I
hunk.
didn't get to see Stamos. Uncle Jesse, yeah.
What have you got, Jonathan?
Well, I think that my first concert experience, if I remember correctly, was MC Hammer and Janet Jackson. I'm pretty sure. But I was pretty young. I was probably maybe 6 or 5. But the only thing I remember was Janet Jackson brought a panther on stage. That's all I remember. So I was really young. And I remember the MC Hammer, all his dancers or whatever. But I would say the concert memory that was most definitive for me in my life was seeing Bela Fleck and Edgar Meyer when I was in college, when I was a sophomore in college. I actually had never heard of Bela Fleck, and if you know my music now, you know that he's my biggest influence. And I definitely probably wouldn't even be here if I never heard him. But, you know, my friends were telling me, hey, Bela Fleck's awesome, he's coming here. And so I never even checked it out, but he did a free clinic in the school, for the School of Music. And I went to that because the tickets were sold out, so I couldn't go to the concert. But I went to this clinic, and at the clinic, I was just blown away, and I was thinking to myself, too bad I can't go to the show. So I just went home to the dorm and just was hanging out. During the intermission, my friend calls me and says, hey, they're not really checking tickets anymore, so you could probably just sneak in. So I did. So I snuck in to see Bela Fleck and Edgar Meyer for the second set, and it was just so mind-blowing. I didn't even clap. I just sat there, just like, it was so amazing. Everyone was screaming, and I just sat there. I couldn't even really move. And that is actually, it was at that show that I decided that I wanted to play music and perform and travel for a living. So that was a pretty definitive moment for me, I would say.
Very good. Very good.
My first concert experience was Michael Jackson's Victory Tour at Neyland Stadium in Knoxville. Whatever it was, 110, 15,000 people. It was mind-blowing. I was in 8th grade, I think. It was awesome. The biggest thing I remember out of that, other than just the sheer audacity of the performance, was Muhammad Ali was on the front row, and they kept putting the spotlight on him. It was like spotlight on Michael, spotlight on Muhammad Ali. It was awesome. But, you know, as a musician, I grew up in Nashville, so all of my early years, I was seeing so many amazing bands from very early on at all of the, like, street festivals they would have back then, you know. Newgrass Revival, or like some of the earliest Flecktone shows, and, you know, some of the early Colonel Bruce Hampton and Aquarium Rescue Unit shows. All that stuff had a profound impact on me, and I think it probably culminated with the first Horde tour, which I actually saw in Atlanta at Lakewood Amphitheater, and they did a set where basically it was like the Flecktones segued into Blues Traveler, which segued into the Rescue Unit, which segued into Widespread Panic, all like 2 hours with very little stopping of any kind. And what struck me on that was the interconnectivity of all the musicians and the way they were all able to just create this amazing organic experience just out of thin air. And it was just super, super powerful and super awesome.
I saw that tour in Syracuse, actually, which is kind of my, I don't talk about that much just because I don't listen to that stuff much anymore. But that was actually, it's interesting. As you were saying that, it made me think. That was another thing that kind of blew my mind, because I'd never seen like a hippie parking lot scene until I went there. And I was just like, my God, these people, they're really weird, you know.
They are.
It was a real eye-opener.
I mean, I'd have to count my first Grateful Dead show, but I mean, come on. All the things that are associated with that were exactly what you would think. They were all crazy, eye-opening. What is that? Really? Grilled cheese for $1? Sweet! Kind of thing, you know, but I don't really listen to that much music. I mean, the best rock concert I've ever seen, without question, was Radiohead. I mean, it was, and every time I've ever seen them, it's just so amazing. And he can actually sing like that for real every time. Nail it. It's sublime.
I have to mention a concert that rocked my world that was completely unexpected. A few years back, I went to Bumbershoot in Seattle, and I was there to cover the Americana beat, you know, and but there was a break in the day where Katy Perry was on the main stage, and I went and saw Katy Perry, and she was phenomenal. She was really great. She had a killer live band. Her backing band was fantastic.
This is random, but you started it. I saw the Katy Perry movie, and I thought that was awesome. I'm just gonna put that out there. I'm not even gonna lie. I went by myself, and that movie was very inspiring, and yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's all I have to say about that.
It was like, and it was like 2 p.m, and I had totally written Katy Perry off as one of those like lip syncing pop, you know. But it was 2 p.m. She had all her costumes with her little tutus, and she just brought it, you know, and she had a live rock band, and it was awesome. It was one of the best shows I've ever seen.
And everyone should watch the Katy Perry movie. That was awesome. I'm just putting that out there. But I think that another show that I thought of, which goes along in the vein of this, is locally, I would say that my favorite show was probably a few months ago, Stephanie's Ed at Asheville Music Hall. And that seems random, but that show was just like, it just made me feel like, all right, I need to step up my game. And, you know, it made me feel just very inspired to see, you know, the local act doing their thing on that level, as far as just, you know, as far as it's great performing, you know. So shout out Stephanie's Ed, and yeah, that was one of my favorite shows I've seen in Asheville, at least.
To follow up on that, my favorite local show that I've seen was the Alashistas playing at Bobo, opening for the Ken Vandermark and Tim Daisy. It was all completely out esoteric music, but it was executed with such precision and such taste and style. It was absolutely amazing and just world class. And we live in a great town with a lot of great music, but to see something that's just above and beyond even that is just an amazing. So
Yeah.
shout out to those guys. They have a brand new album out.
Yeah,
too.
Luchatista's got a brand new album out, coming out on Cuneiform, and
Harvest Records. I think Harvest is pushing the vinyl.
And Jay, in case you don't know, with Acoustic Syndicate is coming out with another record, very much anticipated record sometime.
Yeah, we're looking at probably spring of 2013. It's it takes time, but it's definitely coming down the pipe.
Well, I'll go ahead and throw it out there that one of my first concerts was before I could drive. And, okay, this will date me, but the camera's already dating me enough, I guess. But when I was a kid, I was really into rock and new wave and pretty much a lot of things, but not nearly as much now. But so I had my mom take me to a club in Charlotte to go see Flock of Seagulls. And it was a total blast.
What was your haircut?
I had, well, it was the 80s, so
Yeah.
hair was a lot more hair, and it stood up a lot more. So I actually had a perm at one point. So
Did you employ the White Rain hairspray?
I did have that perm for a short period of time, but mainly spiky, some accents. A lot of sunshine, being a lifeguard kind of lifestyle. That sort of
New
thing.
wave lifeguard.
Yeah,
I
that
can
was
see
me.
it. I can see it. I like this. Let's
Yeah.
go with this.
Well, we're talking about concert memories on what it is today, and also some about the great concerts that you never got to see. I think we should weigh in on that too, because I'll start this off. When I was in college, I got to go on a school trip up to New York, journalism school trip, and was just getting into jazz at that time. Was a fan of Art Blakey and saw that he was playing, coinciding with our 3 or 4 days that we were going to be in New York. And so I was like, man, I am there. And just so happened that Art Blakey fell ill before the show, and that was not too long before he passed, so I did never have the chance to see him. And I know that a lot of people have shows like that where they've missed the opportunity to go see somebody, something tragic happens and they'll never get that opportunity again. What about you guys? What's the big fish that got away?
Mine was actually not too long ago. It was actually this year. The one that comes to mind the most. I was just coming back from Jazz Fest, and I was in Austin, Texas. And the day that I got there, I realized that the Punch Brothers were taping Austin City Limits. And the way that it works is you have to apply for this lottery to get tickets. Basically, you have to plan ahead. I had no idea. I had just gotten to town, saw it was happening, and I called everyone I could think of trying to find a way to get in to see that taping, and I couldn't. I'll definitely watch it when it comes on PBS because I think that's one of the best bands playing, if ever, but definitely now. And I really just all about what those guys do. And I missed the show. And I was sitting the whole time in my hotel room going, darn it, it's happening, but I'm not there.
So have you seen Punch Brothers this year? Have you seen them?
Yes.
All right. All right, I saw them twice this year. I was going to rub it in, but never mind.
They'll be at Leaf. So
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw them at Bonnaroo. That's always fun watching them, in front of 30,000 people who are all doing all kinds of different sorts of Bonnaroo type things, and then they're playing this amazing, accessible but incredibly heady music at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a trip.
When I was, I remember there was a Lollapalooza that I missed because there was a hurricane coming through Central Florida, and it was going to be at the county fairgrounds, which were in my hometown of DeLand, Florida, where nothing cool ever happens. But Lollapalooza was going to be in DeLand, and it was going to be Jane's Addiction, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Babes in Toyland. I was really into the Riot Grrrl thing at the time, and you know, I don't remember the rest of the lineup, but you know, Lollapalooza in the peak of the Lollapalooza time, and it got canceled for a hurricane. It was a bummer.
I remember this. I didn't miss them specifically, but in my when I was in college around 93, 94, there was this band Drive Like Jehu, a post-hardcore band. And just everyone, whenever you asked if they had seen them, everyone would just be like, you know, the whole mouth open, drooling. Oh my God, they're so amazing. And I never got to see them at the time. It's one of the few regrets, because usually I mean, I've seen most of the stuff I want to see. On a different note, there is a specific time, and this just popped in my head, but I was a freshman in high school, and my brother was a senior, and him and his bunch of his pals are going to go see Steve Miller Band. And he said, do you want to go? And I was like, oh, I get to hang out with my brother and all his friends. And I got a ticket. And then the night before, my mom and my dad sat me down and told me I couldn't go see Steve Miller Band. And I was so distraught, you know. I mean, I understood why. I mean, my brother and his friends were going to partake in all kinds of extracurricular activities. So I was a tad young for that, so had to sit it out.
You had to wait for Guns N' Roses to corrupt you more thoroughly.
Well, this was post Guns N' Roses. I got to go to Guns N' Roses because the funny thing is I went with a friend whose dad was a police officer who moonlighted as a guy who went undercover into the parking lot and busted bootleg T-shirts. Like you know, the guys with the grocery bag, and they'd be, you know, the one that you wash it once and it just like totally falls apart. But anyways, that's why I got to go there, because there was a chaperone. But Steve Miller was too intense.
You're in tune with What It Is on Independent Arts and Music of Asheville, broadcasting on imavl.com from Lexington Avenue Brewery. We're going to take a little bit of a break, but don't go away. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about some of the political themes in music, some of the history of songs being appropriated for people running for office, dictators even. We'll have some fun with that. Stick around. Nobody approached him the whole night. He was just too cool. Yeah. It was just like nobody dared.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But all right, so I jotted down a few of the songs that are current with election themes. You know, they're basically, you know, anti-Romney, anti-Republican. I couldn't find anything on the other side. I Googled around, I just didn't find it. Do y'all know about?
Ted Nugent's doesn't have
I
a big
haven't
head out.
found the news.
I think
Hank Jr.
Yeah, I haven't
did
seen
something.
anything. I haven't
In
heard
the
anything.
wiki,